So, did you finish the last paragraph of Eis Zayin? Yeah. And that was, yeah, we did. So that was to explain, begin to explain the Yichud Havaya Nelikim, why Havaya can be revealed, as it were, in Shem Elikim, and Shem Elikim does not compromise Shem Havaya or eclipse it completely, as we would expect, because you can't have Bligvul and Vul coexist. So the mashal is the mashal of the Rav. The Rav's mashal. The mashal of a Rav gives a mashal. The point is that in the mashal for the Rav, there's no hell of a hester. The ''tשכ," which in the dimshal of Shem Havaya is expressed in every detail. The chsoron of the mashal is, that's while he's conveying it. But when he's engaged in first conjuring the mashal, he has to leave the world of ''tשכ. And that's where the mashal breaks down. L'mayla, there is no conjuring it from other sources. Since all comes from him, so therefore even be'esh hatzimtzum, there's no time. It means at the level of the tzimtzum, when the Koach HaGvul first appeared before the Yichud of Havaya Nelikim. Again, there's no time and there's no before and there's no after the dargis, but there's a dargah, the chiddush of the expression of Koach HaGvul, which is a dramatic and drastic change. By divine design, the Eibush L'chatchila only expressed Koach HaBligvul. So that's godliness. Infinite is godliness. Then the dramatic change, Gvul, which is the opposite of Bligvul, which in our world is a chsoron. That's the whole point, what motivates the entire process. You have to remember this, otherwise nothing makes any sense. Or it makes sense for the wrong reasons. And that is that the whole motivation of Ishtalshalos is the desire for Dira B'Tachtonim, and that means a relationship with us. Everything works backwards from there. Why should there be Bligvul Gvul in this whole process? It's all because of the Nis'ava of the Dira B'Tachtonim, for which there is no explanation. Chas v'shalom. Why do you need to have a need? He chose to. Kamaru, Atzmos chose. But what did he choose? Chose Dira B'Tachtonim, and the pnimius of that is the relationship with you and me. That's the kavanah of Dira B'Tachtonim. And therefore, so they're already in Atzmos, as it were, with this free choice of this Gvul person, you and I, with all of the pratim, and therefore kind of retroactively, so all of Ishtalshalos and creation will reflect that. It's not like you learn, or you may have learned that the whole thing begins with it itself, and there's a tzimtzum, and then there's a Elam Haza, and then the sixth day of creation is Admo. It's the opposite. The only reason is in Eid itself, in the Koach HaGvul and Koach HaBligvul, is because of Dira B'Tachtonim. They don't have this clear, and nothing of learning is all. So all narishkeit. I won't say narishkeit, but missed the point entirely. Yeah, exactly. Save Masa Machshavat Chil. Video. It's not the impression you get. You just learn that Maimon after Maimon, that's intention. The Maimon is not trying to hoodwink anybody. The Maimon wants us to understand. That's the whole point. This whole rich, reich, and incredibly sophisticated and nuanced Seder Ishtalshalos and process of Bria was to know that and how awesome it is. But then, why? For you. So the chsaron of the moshel of the moshel is that be'es hatzimtzum, for the Rav, there's a hell of a hester of the etzem hasech, not so l'mayla. Now deeper. So all the explanation so far now is like this. This is what it's predicated on. Gvul is a chsaron. Does the Rav need a moshel? He doesn't need a moshel. We need the moshel. So he's going to descend from his world, as it were, and produce a moshel so that the Talmud understands, and that's why he's a Rav. And his whole reason, his whole identity is to teach the children, no question. But the Maisa, the Metzius is that they are very on a completely different world. He's got to bring it down into motion. So what do we just learn now? That for the Rav, it's not Ma'alim and Master. Yichud Avaylikim, which is what happened in the Mנחem-Av in Kodesh HaKadoshim, they were invited to have the Eibishter's perspective, which means that Shem Alikim is not master. Like the Moshel doesn't conceal the idea for the Rav with every detail that he says. It's bottled betachlis to the Nimshal. There's no detail, in fact, that's extraneous. It's all there to explain the Nimshal. And as he's saying, the story in the Rav's mind, the whole idea is fully expressed in the concrete. It's the idea that is guiding the story, even as he says it. But at the end of the day, it's a story. It'll take 40 years for the Talmud to understand what the story is conveying. But what have we arrived at now to answer our question that we're struggling and grappling with is why in Mokhem-Hamikdash Aleph, number one, there had to be Shem Elikim, even though Shem Havaya produces time and space. That was answered. But that then engendered the next question. So you have to have how to call Shem Elikim. How can you have a yichud? If you're telling me like the creation, it's that Shem Havaya, where there's like a zman, or the motion we gave for that was the midas in the seichel. But there it's not the midah per se, but the seichel, so they're unified. Actually, to just a little bit to elaborate, seichel and midas be'emes, they're at odds with each other. What's a maila in seichel is a chsar in midas. The whole point of a midas is to be engaged personally. The whole point of seichel is objectivity. So if you just separate, it's like a comic book kind of way. All seichel is interested in is the objective truth. So if something is good, so you get close. If it's far, you go far. But mitzat seichel, you do that dispassionately, you get excited. Mitzat seichel mamish, even though seichel will dictate behavior, you'll get this, don't get it. Get close, stay far away. But mitzat seichel will be done dispassionately. And on the contrary, to get personally involved, like seichel says, what do you mean personally involved? This is speaking the objective mind of this thing. Getting subjectively involved is a chsaron in seichel. It's a fundamental chsaron. You can't learn anything if you have an agenda. You never discover the truth of anything. The whole point of seichel is chachma, that's why it's bittul. Seichel starts with chachma, with bittul, because the only way to understand something is to be free of agenda, and the truth is whatever it's going to be. I like it, don't like it, it's nice or not nice. The whole nature of seichel, that's why it's rooted in chachma. And if the nekuda, the previous maamar, if the nekuda is not in the heichel is already the binah, and heichel is already where the binah start to emerge, then you lose the whole idea. It becomes subjective, and the idea is corrupted. The idea remains true when it's the true idea. Now, it's true we learned in the previous maamar, like the tzorach halamish, that there is the midas and seichel, but that's only because seichel is the potential it's going to be to all of the midas can be attractive, not attractive. So it's all there. There is a conclusion. but not an emotional conclusion, a value conclusion. Midas a gas for the sake. The typical, the true intellectual, the true is a cold person. That's what he does, stays away from fire and does whatever everybody else does. But it's all dispassionate, but it's all just the minor. So good is it's the objective truth of this is good, this is bad. So therefore the seichel, the way our midas, rather the midas the way they are in the seichel are completely beachtus. One is more valuable than the other. It's the truth that is. That the chayr is emotional for. If Shem Havaya creates, the takabi is man and mokin, but it's not each one in its own world and at odds. It's what God wants. He wants this place to be down to that place. The two places cannot be in the same place. That's the Rebbe. He wants his chalpus. That kind of hardcore is chalpus. That can only be with Shem Alikim. You have a Shem Havaya, even though we'll create time and space, but it's all one. I mean, what does it mean it's all one? Like the midas, there are midas there. There's a conclusion of the seichel, where it's not anything other than the seichel's conclusion, and one isn't more valuable than the other. The reason I hesitate is because it seems this is the next chapter, the next one in the mind, not here. But yesh lechalik, but anyway, so let's leave it at that. Let's learn from it. But we have to finish this point here. So therefore, we need Shem Alikim. So now we have Shem Alikim. Now they have Shem Alikim. How do you have the Yichud? That was the whole moshel of the Rav and the Talmud. For us, it's Ma'al the Master, not for the Rav. So what is the Kodesh HaKadoshim? It's God's invitation to have his perspective on reality, which the Godol enters in Yom Kippur and inspires everybody else with that. Now, just to remember, we'll see that. Understand, this is what Yaakov said when he woke up there. This is not an ordinary place. Even though, what's the point? It's not Asad Hedge yet, even though it's created by the Asad Mamoris, which are called million dead yoita, ordinary words. It's not an ordinary place because he's the Yichud of Havaya and Alikim. Everybody else, Alikim is Ma'alim and Master. Understand this deeper, Yuvim Behektim, Shabinyan, Yichud of Havaya Alikim. So this whole subject, this whole thing of Yichud of Havaya Alikim, Havaya Alikim Kolacha, the Shnei B'Yudim B'Chlolus. Two general explanations. Seems shot in the mind here is as follows. And what's going to come now is everything we're saying till now. Bir Aleph, namely, Shagam Shem Alikim Tzimtzum in Yonei Holagalos, because at the end of the day, this is already actually a bit deeper. That Shem Alikim itself reveals. How is it revealed? In the Moshel of the Rav and the Talmud. If not for the Moshel, the Talmud would never get the idea, which is the Shem Havaya. True, it takes 40 years, but you won't get it without it. So what's the whole point of Shem Alikim? And to bring godliness to a finite task. In order that Shem Havaya be drawn the mat and be known by us finite people, it's only the Atzimtzum the heaven, the Shem Alikim. Again, it's the Moshel. In order for the Talmud to get the Seichel, he has to make a Moshel. So this is one beer. It's not 100% clear whether this is something in addition to everything said before, or he's just putting in other Oisius. Not clear to I see it, all of these thousands of words they wrote there either. At any rate, well, I maybe should spend more time in it, maybe. A cold upon him, here's the Nakud. The Nakud is why they're not a stira. Because Shem Alikim is also ultimately forgiven. It brings the truth of godliness to a finite, lowly, concealed, hardcore world, which is us. We'd never know God if there isn't the moshel, if godliness isn't invested in our world on our terms, with all those limitations, the tzimtzum, the svidus, the bidus, the holy shtalshalis. So what's the point of the tzimtzum? Gilui, to who? To pour us. It's one beer. For oid beer, it seems that he wants to now, in going further, focus on the second beer. And that is the Shnei Hashemis Abaylikim Im Shmoyisem Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu Shlemayla B'Shnei. They're both Eibishter's names, and he is higher than both of them. Now, what's he saying now? What he's saying now that's different than what he said in the line before is, as we were saying earlier, yeah. So it's, yeah. The whole explanation till now is that the Kim is lower. But the Rav sees it, sees the Seichel there. Now adding a new one, and that's even I was adding down this first, that it's through the Seichel that's ultimately Gilui. But at the end of the day, Shem Elikim is Ma'alim B'Master. Does the Rav need the Moshel? No. Now he says, that for the Eibishter, one is not a Ma'alim, one is not a Chsor. This is all based on one is higher and lower, Ma'ala and Chsor. So we're struggling with that despite the Chsor of Shem Elikim, it's not Ma'alim or Master, because Rav sees the idea there, and now he's adding in the Moshel, now he's adding the Moshel is actually the means by which he can communicate at the end of the day to the Talmud. But still Chsor, but you gotta use Chsor and exploit it for its Ma'ala. Now he's saying it's not Chsor. The mitzvah atzmos, now, this is not, as you said in the order 66, we learned it yet. Didn't get to it yet. We're not invoking atzmos and saying that atzmos can do anything, and therefore it can be the chibur of Havai and the Likud. That's saying, it's at atzmos, you can take Echsod and the Ma'ala and put them together. It's not the Vorti. The Vorti is, again, he said in the early Ha'ara, we're trying to have some Havana Vasoga. And we can grasp this, and that is, the point is, as he concludes, Ashalakach, all the Britzoiloi, they wish to finally beyond Bligvul, neither of them contain it. One is not more virtuous than the other. Infinite is not more virtuous than finite. It's not more, it's not less, it's not closer, it's not further. So why is it there? This is again, it's drawing on Atzmos' Bechira. Maybe he chose to reveal himself in these two ways. But since he chose to reveal himself, Seichel can understand, since he's beyond both, they're both equally virtuous. Because it's all him. Again, we're not invoking some superpower that you can unite opposites. We're appreciating that it's all him equally. Let's go a bit further as he concludes his point about Pizeh, Yesh Lahisev Bir. Was there now that further explanation? That the tzimtzum doesn't conceal in addition to all the explanations. Look at order 66, let's learn it together. We're going to say presently the very next sif. We're talking about the Maimon now. The chiddush of this beer is that each one feels their source, and because they feel their source, that dwells in equality in them. Why am I less than? Why is Bligvul less than Gvul less than Bligvul? I'm small and you're bigger. Both come from him. The previous explanations were based on no, the value of Gvul is more, Gvul is less. But nonetheless, it's not master because the Rav sees it. That's the way he communicates. We justify it and explain the value of Gvul, notwithstanding, and that doesn't conceal, notwithstanding, that at the end of the day, Gvul is less than Blik. That's the explanation till now. Now he wants to explain that no, that because they feel the source, then now is a whole new perspective. Less is not less and more is not more. It's all his chosen way of expression. But that's different than invoking Atmos and saying that Atmos imposes himself on virtue or non-virtue, Blik, Gvul, and unites them. Different. Here there's an appreciation in Seichel. Eibishter is beyond everything, and it's chosen to express himself in finite and infinite. One is not more or less him. And therefore, and of course they can be compatible. As he goes on to say, Kiven, Shagam, Tzimtzum, there's three explanations for Yichad Navayin Elikim. One, Atzmos, finish Gaka, do anything you can make opposites coexist. Two, B'Yorim in the Maimorim, how they coexist, because at the end of the day, for the Eibishter, it's like a chsorn, it's emotion, but he sees the Shem Havaya, which means his creative force, which in the Nimshul is the Etzem Seichel in the Moshel. Moreover, we just added now in the Yisheye, without the Moshel, Shem Havaya would not be known to us creation. That's all second explanation. And now the third one here in this Maimon is that you feel the source and they're both equally him. We dropped the whole Mailen Chesadim model, which is what we're working with till now, obviously, because that's what God wants. He wants to create this distance higher and lower, bigger and smaller. That's what the Tachtonim means. But now you and I are privy to this truth, this simple truth, that Gvul is no further or closer. Nothing is less him. He chose to express himself. He's utterly beyond both, and therefore both are equal expressions of him. There's no Maila or Chsorn in either. That's the Nukud that he's saying here. And that's what's expressed in the Beis Hamikdash. It's not he's even here. There's no difference here anywhere else. Let's conclude that. No, what the given. Now we're saying it's one, fundamentally one. Not because it can be used, it doesn't contain all of the, but because it's all equal expressions of him in Shaykh Sheyas to the whole question of concealment falls away. If you feel that truth there. And in Kodesh Kedoshim, that's what's felt. So how could the Tzimtzum be Mailim? The whole discussion is over. There's no need for any explanations, which are all based on notwithstanding. Nonetheless, he still sees it there, and it's a marshal, and all the virtues, and it brings the truth of the Creator to a finite nivra. No,
isn't that fundamentally true everywhere, not just in Machane?
Yeah, that's here.
Here we actually see it.
Here we're invited to
thinking about it.
So the whole point is so that we should bring that truth to all of creation through our avodah. So the Godol goes in there, Kodesh HaKadoshim, and as the Godol, the leader, he lights up the menorah of every year. He's meant to inspire this at everybody. And he goes in, we all go with him together, in other words. But the whole avodah is to make the world Kodesh HaKadosh, to reveal that truth. So let's conclude the paragraph about this. I'm going to write this up also, the summary, the three explanations a little bit, so that we can have it in front of us. And I hope what I'm saying is correct. Rabbi says, now we'll understand even deeper at Lashon, the words of the Zohar that Yaakov said when he awoke. And he said, less day Nasar Hedyet. This place is not an ordinary place. Shemokim Amigdash Eino Yasar Hedyet. In other words, he's saying it's not just, in this place there's a revelation of something else. No, it's the place. It's not an ordinary place. That the place, the same lashon, the place of the Odin is not part of the measure. Meaning, beyond time, beyond space was appreciated by space itself, which l'chora means feeling the source, the space, the gvul itself, and the bli gvul for that matter, all equally express, I'm valid. I'm valid expression of the Eibishter, no less than bli gvul is. The Mokim itself acknowledges that. In Mokim, not I'm just useful. Not he just serves a purpose, like the Moshel serves a purpose and a very necessary integral purpose. More than that. Space itself. When he says he l'maylim namokim means feeling the shoyresh. He feels the beyondness of it all. The Eibishter is revealed in the space. And if the Eibishter himself is revealed in the space, then that's the same Eibishter revealed in beyond space at the same time. To rephrase that, in the Mokim and Migdash, that's where one experiences God's choice to reveal himself in Gilui and Helen, in bli gvul and gvul. In the words, the Gilui and Tzimtzum, the final bracket to the previous us. That's what's revealed there. So it's therefore it's one, it's united because it's your decision to reveal yourself this way and that way, and one is not less or more you. And therefore they seamlessly, Gilui and Tzimtzum, bli gvul and gvul, become one. Unimaginable to our brain and eye. But that is the truth. Kind of clear, friends. And not, yeah. Having the heart of enough the mind, there's no you gotta think it through in your own language and then have questions. I'll be happy to hear a text, a phone call. Couldn't sleep last night because of the chiddush of this mind, but before the drusha. This hour, that hour, that'll be the most wonderful thing. Friends, we have to be Adam la'amol yula. The person is born to toil. The choice is whether we toil over. Chaymer leveinu, bricks and mortar, or kal v'chaymer, and live in hilchas niglech sidus. The more we toil there and get vexed, there, the more exempt from toiling in other things. So there's a gain here. You never should balance my buying to this, borrowing to this. Abel Shapiro was saying the other day with the BLC outside, I just happened to hear a snippet of it. He recalls a conversation he had with the BLC. These guys, Abel Shapiro and his classmates, they were Yale's boys because he taught them in Ocean Parkway and then continued as 13, 14 years old. He continued that all the years. Machman Shapiro label, they became the chaysim. One was Zalman's father, Lieber Kaplan. Although he came to Montreal, but as part of that Kvutza, and then he was sent to Australia. So the label Shapiro was saying, the label Shapiro, Rabbi Shapiro, we had one the long talk with Rabbi, and Rabbi was talking about thinking Chassidus. Rabbi didn't cost us so much in. I'm not saying this is a hero, not in avodas hatfila so much, but in the thinking of Chassidus. He didn't say what Rabbi said. It's just it was a long discussion. What the thinking Chassidus means, not just thinking of the mind of the words again, but again, what does it mean? What does it mean? What does it mean? Challenging yourself to understand the concept and not just words, not hide behind words and stop there. Okay, so it's okay, legal. Then move on. What is okay, legal? Not talking light, not talking kalim. It's all so what? So it's constantly stretching the mind to entertain that which is not which is abstract, which is fundamentally abstract. That means that's work constantly. Okay.